Hello, everyone. I'm Mr. Five. Today, I want to share with you a very special story that took place on a summer afternoon in July 2023 in the peaceful countryside of Nebraska, USA. It was a scorching summer day, with the blazing sun shining down on vast, endless cornfields. Our main character is Mr. Richard Smith, a wealthy man in his 70s, accustomed to a life of comfort and luxury. However, on that particular day, Richard unexpectedly found himself in a difficult situation, one that neither money nor social status could easily solve. And now let's dive into the story. Richard Smith drove his luxurious Mercedes through the lush green cornfields stretching endlessly across the Nebraska countryside. The sweltering summer heat seeped through the windows, making him uncomfortable as he kept adjusting the air conditioning in search of relief. Suddenly, the car shook slightly, slowed down, and came to a complete stop. He had a flat tire. Richard fumbled to call roadside assistance, but to his frustration, there was no signal. A wave of irritation and helplessness washed over him as he faced this unexpected predicament. Just then, in the distance, Richard noticed a young boy walking toward him at a leisurely pace. The boy wore an old, worn-out t-shirt, and his hands and clothes bore the signs of hard work, indicating that he was far from wealthy. Yet, there was an unusual calmness and confidence in his demeanor. As Richard looked at him, an unexpected sense of relief crept into his heart, as if a glimmer of hope had just appeared. Richard stepped out of his car, standing beside the dusty dirt road, his eyes filled with frustration as he stared at the flat tire under the scorching Nebraska summer heat. At that moment, the young boy in the worn-out t-shirt had come closer, his bright and curious eyes taking in the scene. Richard hesitated for a moment, skepticism creeping into his mind at the sight of the boy's simple appearance. But as they stood face to face, he was taken aback by the boy's friendly smile and the quiet confidence in his eyes. "Do you need some help, sir?" The boy's clear and calm voice broke the stifling silence. Richard hesitated slightly before responding, "I have a flat tire, and my phone has no signal. Do you have any way to help me?" The boy smiled warmly, his gaze filled with reassurance. "It's no problem, sir. I know how to change a tire. My grandpa taught me." Without hesitation, the boy walked over, opened the trunk, took out the tools, and started working skillfully. His small hands moved with surprising agility, showing a level of experience that Richard hadn't expected. Standing there watching, Richard felt something unfamiliar stirring inside him. He had spent his life surrounded by comfort, used to paying others for their services, but here, in this remote countryside, everything suddenly felt different. Richard reached into his wallet and pulled out a few bills, offering them to the boy, but the boy politely declined with a bright smile. "I didn't help you for money, sir," the boy said kindly. "My mom always says that kindness is the most valuable thing, and we should help each other whenever we can." He stood up, dusted off his sleeves, and turned to walk away, leaving Richard standing there, his heart filled with a mix of gratitude and astonishment at the simple yet profound lesson he had just received. As Jamal's small figure disappeared down the dusty road, Richard slowly walked back to his sleek Mercedes. He started the engine, but his mind remained lost in thoughts about the pure and selfless kindness he had just experienced from a complete stranger. For the rest of the drive home, he couldn't stop thinking about that bright, genuine smile one without expectation, hesitation, or any hidden motives, a smile that came from a truly kind heart. Returning to his vast yet cold mansion, Richard felt an unfamiliar emptiness he had never noticed before. He sat down in his expensive leather chair, his eyes scanning the luxurious room filled with every possible comfort, yet lacking true warmth. The image of Jamal kept replaying in his mind, his worn-out shoes, his faded shirt, but most of all, his eyes that shone with optimism and unwavering faith in life. Richard had spent his entire life in a world of material wealth, where every act of help came with conditions, measured in money and personal gain. For the first time, he realized that true kindness was something that couldn't be bought, something beyond financial worth or social status. That evening, in his grand yet empty home, Richard felt the weight of loneliness pressing down on him like never before. He suddenly understood that despite having so much, he lacked the one thing Jamal and his family possessed, genuine love and heartfelt connection. And in that moment of quiet reflection, Richard made a decision. He had to find Jamal again. He wanted to understand more about the boy who had shifted his perspective on life with just one simple yet profoundly meaningful act of kindness. Early the next morning, Richard decided to return to the small rural town of Harlan, where Jamal lived. There was an undeniable urge in his heart, a need to understand more about the boy who had awakened something deep within him. When he arrived, he stopped to ask a few locals for directions and soon found himself in front of a modest little house at the end of a red dirt road. As the door opened, a middle-aged woman appeared. It was Dorothy Williams, Jamal's mother. She greeted him with a warm smile, her eyes friendly, but carrying a hint of surprise at the sight of the wealthy man standing at her doorstep. "Sorry to bother you," Richard said politely. "My name is Richard Smith. Yesterday your son Jamal helped me change a flat tire. I just wanted to come by and thank him again." Upon hearing this, Dorothy's expression softened even more, and she invited him inside. The house was small, yet it exuded an unexpected warmth and comfort. Family photos adorned the walls, each one telling a story of a life that may have lacked material wealth, but was overflowing with love and togetherness. Richard felt a strange yet comforting warmth spread through him, something he hadn't experienced in a long time. He found Jamal in the backyard, diligently repairing an old wooden fence. When Jamal saw him, he broke into the same bright, genuine smile as the day before. Richard was deeply moved by the sincerity of both mother and son, feeling as though he had stepped into a world of simple yet profound goodness. In that moment, Richard realized that he hadn't just found Jamal's family. He had found a part of himself that he had long forgotten. After returning home, the images of Jamal and Dorothy lingered in Richard's mind. He couldn't stop thinking about their radiant, sincere smiles, despite living in a small old house. A decision quickly formed in Richard's heart. He wanted to do something meaningful, not just to repay the kindness Jamal had shown him, but to honor the true value of unconditional generosity. The very next day, Richard reached out to old acquaintances, contractors, and trusted friends. Before long, a clear plan was set in motion. In the following days, Jamal's home underwent a complete renovation. Construction workers replaced the old fence, repaired the leaky roof, and repainted the entire house in a soft, beautiful shade of blue. When Jamal saw the team of workers diligently restoring his home, he was both surprised and overwhelmed with joy. He ran up to Richard, his eyes wide with emotion. "You didn't have to do this. I helped you because I wanted to, not because I expected anything in return." Richard gently placed a hand on Jamal's shoulder and smiled warmly. "I know, Jamal, but you and your mother helped me realize something priceless. This isn't about repaying a debt. It's my way of showing my deepest gratitude." In the days that followed, Richard spent more time with Jamal and his family, sharing stories and enjoying simple meals filled with laughter. The little house had not only been transformed into something more beautiful, but it now carried a profound meaning, one of kindness, generosity, and the genuine human connections that make life truly rich. A few weeks later, Richard stood in front of the small house, now radiant and beautifully restored under the warm Nebraska sunset. Beside him, Jamal and his mother, Dorothy, gazed at their home with deep emotion. Dorothy gently held her son's hand, her voice trembling slightly but filled with sincerity. "Richard, you've given my family something we never even dared to dream of. Not just a new house, but faith in the goodness of people." Richard smiled softly, looking into Jamal's eyes before saying, "In truth, Jamal has given me the greatest gift of all. His kindness reminded me of something precious that I thought I had lost long ago. Thank you, Jamal, for showing me that happiness isn't found in wealth, but in the way we treat one another." Jamal looked up at him, his eyes shining with joy and determination. "I only did what my mother taught me, but now I understand even more what she meant, that when we do good, good things will come back to us." Richard smiled warmly and placed a reassuring hand on Jamal's shoulder. "That's right, Jamal. Never lose your kindness and sincerity. Even the smallest acts of goodness can create great change." As Richard drove away, glancing in the rearview mirror at the newly painted blue house behind him, he felt a deep realization settle within him. Life is truly meaningful when we give and share. And that was the most valuable lesson he had learned from Jamal, a humble boy from a quiet Nebraska town. On the way back, Richard drove slowly past the familiar cornfields, but his heart had undergone a profound change. He once believed that a fulfilling life was defined by a full bank account, a luxurious mansion, or expensive possessions. But now he realized that the true value of life lay in human connection and genuine kindness. The image of Jamal, the small boy with a big heart, remained vivid in his mind. Those small hands had changed the life of a man who had long been hardened by the world. Jamal had not sought money or recognition. He had simply done what was right, guided by the purity of his heart. And that simple act of kindness had rippled outward, rekindling the humanity that had been buried beneath the rush of daily life. Richard understood now that sometimes a single small act of kindness, when given sincerely, has the power to transform an entire life. Kindness is an invisible yet powerful force, one that can heal wounds and bring hope to those around us. The most important thing in life is not how much we own, but whether we are willing to open our hearts and share what we have. And throughout the journey home, Richard made a firm decision. He would spend the rest of his life giving more, loving more, and always remembering the invaluable lesson that Jamal and his mother Dorothy had taught him. True happiness always comes from a heart that is willing to give. From the day he met Jamal and Dorothy, Richard's life was never the same. He gradually shed his cold, reserved exterior and began to open his heart to those around him. Richard often returned to visit Jamal's family not out of duty or obligation, but because he genuinely felt warmth and joy in their company. Jamal, the little boy he had met that day, had grown wiser and continued to help others just as he had promised Richard. Each time Richard looked at Jamal, he realized more deeply that kindness not only changes others, but also transforms oneself. He decided to spend the rest of his life sharing, helping those in need, and spreading the values of compassion far and wide. He became involved in charity work, telling Jamal's story to many people as a powerful testament to the magic of sincerity and kindness. Richard often told those he met, "We don't need wealth or power to do something meaningful. A small act of kindness, when given from the heart, has the power to change a life." And today I share this story with you, not just to tell the tale of Richard, Jamal, or Dorothy, but to remind each of us to open our hearts, to always choose kindness, because sometimes a simple gesture can become a guiding light for someone else. If this story touches your heart, share it to spread its message, because kindness is the greatest gift we can give one another. The story of Richard and Jamal is more than just a chance encounter or a momentary act of kindness. It stands as a clear testament to the incredible power of compassion and genuine human connection in a world full of challenges and uncertainties. From a wealthy yet lonely man, Richard came to realize that the true meaning of life does not lie in the material possessions he accumulated, but in the way he gives, connects, and shares with others. The most valuable lesson Richard learned from Jamal was the power of unconditional kindness. Jamal was not rich, yet he possessed a generous heart, always willing to help others without expecting anything in return. It was this pure, selfless spirit that awakened something within Richard, allowing him to see life through a different lens, one that was simpler, more sincere, and filled with empathy. This story serves as a reminder to all of us that life becomes truly meaningful when we step outside our comfort zones, listen more, understand more, and share more with those around us. Whether you are wealthy or struggling, hold a high position or live a humble life, as long as your heart is moved by the struggles of others, you already possess something priceless. And if there is one message to take away from this story, let it be Richard's heartfelt reminder to us all. Never hesitate to show kindness, because even the smallest act of compassion today can change someone's life forever. Dear friends, the story of Richard Smith and young Jamal is more than just a heartwarming tale. It is a profound reminder for each of us. In this life, not everyone is blessed with material wealth, but we all have the ability to give kindness and compassion. Every small act, every genuine gesture of care has the power to create meaningful change. Today, I invite you to take a moment and look around. There may be someone near you who needs a glance of empathy, a helping hand, or simply a warm smile. Do not hesitate to offer these small gestures, for they hold the power to spread, making the world a better place. If the story of Richard and Jamal has touched your heart, share it so that together we can plant seeds of happiness and multiply kindness. We do not need great wealth to do good. All it takes is an open heart and the courage to give sincerely, and in doing so, we will transform not only the lives of others, but also our own. Finally, I hope that each of us will find true joy in life, not through material possessions, but through living authentically and with love. Always remember, your kindness is the most precious gift this world needs. Thank you for listening to today's story. Always choose kindness, for it is the most beautiful legacy we can leave behind.